Black Christmas.
There was a little girl murdered over in the park tonight. Yes, I heard.
A high school girl's been murdered. Mr. Harrison's daughter is missing. And now at the house where she lives, the other girls are getting obscene phone calls.
Hello? What do you want? Why are you doing this?
Remember those idyllic scenes out of your childhood? Crisp winter nights, sleigh bells, crackling Yule logs? Remember those? Remember them well. After Black Christmas, they'll never be the same again. Black Christmas, starring Olivia Hussey, Keir Dullea, Margot Kidder, and starring John Saxon as Lieutenant Fuller. If this movie doesn't make your skin crawl, it's on too tight.
Hello, listeners past, present, and future. This is the Haddonfield Radio Trailer Park, where we take you moment by moment and frame by frame through the trailers that make us want to go to the movies. We are your hosts. My name is Christian White.
And I'm Joe Francazio.
And today, for this episode, we're going to be taking you through two separate trailers. One vintage trailer and one modern trailer. Now, I know when we started this in episode 1, we said we're going to be going through all the Halloween franchise trailers, and that is still the case. However, just to shake things up a little bit, for this episode and what we're going to be doing, every subsequent episode or every other episode, we'll be doing 2 Halloween trailers. So next episode, we will be bringing you the trailers for Halloween 2 from 1981 and Halloween 3 Season of the Witch from 1982. But for this one, we decided we would shake it up a little bit, like I said, and we're going to be doing 2 trailers. And Joe, why don't you tell them which trailers we're going to be doing?
Sure, we're going to do 1974's Black Christmas, often cited as a huge influence for the original Halloween movie by John Carpenter. And then we're doing the new David Gordon Green movie, The Exorcist Believer.
Yes, very exciting, which has a lot of connections, of course, to the Halloween franchise, in that it was directed by David Gordon Green, the story he created with Danny McBride, Christopher Nelson and his team handling all the effects, and a lot of the same crew members from the David Gordon Green modern Halloween trilogy.
Yeah, they got the band back together.
Yeah, exactly. They got the band back together. And it almost seems like they're doing very similar type of stylization to the Exorcist franchise this time around.
Yeah, they are, they had a success with their approach to Halloween, and I think now they're trying it with The Exorcist. Now, as much as they got the band back together, there are a lot of other new players involved too.
Oh yeah.
So I don't know. Hopefully it's not a. It doesn't backfire on them to try and just sort of do this, erase all the sequels and go back to a sequel to the original.
Well, the thing is, I just read yesterday David Gordon Green saying that this movie doesn't necessarily discount Exorcist II: The Heretic and Exorcist III: Legion. It just, those events may or may not have taken place, but this film really just jumps off from specifically the events of 1973's The Exorcist.
Yeah, it's only really considering them in the terms of when you watch this movie. But you gotta wonder, now if this works, again, are we seeing the beginning of a whole new, I don't want to say genre, but a whole new way of doing films that's gonna, like the idea, let's forget sequels.
Oh, the requel idea.
And do the requel,
Yeah.
So, think about some huge movies if they start doing that too.
Yep.
Let's do a new Godfather too.
I don't think it's a terrible idea. I think it's a way of sidestepping the idea of just doing a straight, remake.
Right.
We went through that era where it was all about remakes, and now we're at this new phase where it's all about these requels. They're sequels, usually taking place decades later, that sort of reorient you and reorient your position within the franchise following the franchise's first film.
Which is really cool if you think about it. If people can have some success with it, it's almost like a choose your own adventure book from when we were kids, right?
Yeah.
You can watch the original and then pick which way you want to go with when you continue. You can go the original sequel way, you can go the new ones, and
And much like what has always been done in the Halloween franchise, you can just keep going back to that starting point and starting over again. You can create another Exorcist trilogy 15, 20 years from now, starting from the beginning again.
Exactly.
And we've said before on numerous times during episodes of Haddonfield Radio, I think that's what really sets the Halloween franchise apart, is that concept of timelines and of multiverse and of starting yourself over again at the start and starting new stories that kind of just go on their own branches from the major tree, the Halloween franchise tree.
Now, I do think some of the success when they do that has been that they are able to retain actors from the originals. We are still within the lifespan of some of the people who were in original early horror filmmaking. So, you know, even in the new Exorcist, they have the original actress who was the mother,
Ellen Burstyn.
I mean, yeah, that's kind of, you know, half of the, you know, it's the older Jamie Lee Curtis approach, you know, which is it's interesting to see this new way of saying, hey, we're gonna make one of our main leads in a movie, and you know, a much older actor or actress, which is something you don't typically see.
Well, I think actually nowadays there's been this new push towards hitting that nostalgia button in audiences.
But what happens when we get too far away from that and someone tries this and there's literally nobody to anchor you?
I guess you would have to just...
Will it work as well? Or does it only kind of work right now because you can split off and you still have some original actors to kind of keep it real?
So in other words, you're saying, do you need that direct link character-wise to the original film?
So 20 years from now, if they do make another Halloween that is a direct sequel to the original, like with that approach, but obviously we're not going to have anybody
like a 90-year-old Jamie Lee Curtis.
Yeah, right. So
I mean, then again, would it surprise me? No, it would not surprise me.
So then I wonder if you could start would it work if you brought in an older Danielle Harris to pick up the reins or something?
Yeah.
So you have still a link to the Halloween movies. But ultimately, you have to get a new actor.
I'm going to tell you right now what will happen. With the Halloween franchise in particular, let's say 20 years from now they start a new timeline. Well, now they can bring the actors from these David Gordon Green movies, who now are 20 years older, and bring Andy Matichak back older, or something like that.
And I don't even want to talk about what CG or AI might do for being able to bring characters. I mean, look at the new indie movie with how they... You know, D.H. Harrison Ford, and I mean,
there's also
great.
that.
So who knows? Who knows which way? Anyway,
and really quick with The Exorcist, the thing, it's a Blumhouse film, which also, just like the David Gordon Green Halloween films, it's a Blumhouse production.
Yeah.
And they must have some confidence in it, because the movie is still a couple months out from being released. We're recording this in July of 2023. This movie comes out October 13th, 2023. So we've got a couple of months. And yet they just announced 2025 Exorcist Deceiver, the sequel.
I've read that it's a 3-picture deal.
Right. Yeah. So there's got to be some confidence behind the scenes in this one's viability.
That or is a power move on David Gordon Green to ensure he gets to make 3 movies.
Yeah, that's true.
You want me to do this? Well,
this was a $400 million investment.
See, my worry is this. I have a lot of faith in David Gordon Green and the Danny McBride combo, especially we're keeping Blumhouse as producers. And there's a bunch of companies involved, but that's all good stuff. But I am worried that they're trying to capitalize on the formula that worked for them with Halloween, and they're throwing all the money at it. You know, it's just the old, you know, the original was great, and it usually didn't have a lot of money. They weren't expecting it to do what it did, and now they're expecting it.
Well, the thing with the original is it's not just a great horror film. It's widely considered the greatest horror film of all time. And it's widely also considered to be the scariest movie of all time to this day.
Right.
And so they're really taking a big chance here. See, with Halloween, Michael Myers is so iconic that he's going to put asses in seats, okay?
Yeah.
The Exorcist, there's this built-in expectation that if you're going to jump back into that lineage, you're going to have to put your money where your mouth is, and you're going to have to bring it.
Yeah.
And if you don't, And that's why I think this film, in my opinion, this will be the most divisive film of 2023. That's my opinion. I think from the offset, it's going to have a lot of people. I believe it's going to make money, especially in its opening weekend.
Yeah.
I think that the trailer, as we'll talk about when we get to it, the trailer is effective, and I think it will bring audiences in, but I think this movie is going to be extremely divisive. As a matter of fact, ironically enough, I think this will be the most divisive horror film since Halloween Ends.
Well, we'll have to see, right?
Yeah.
So this is the perfect thing to talk about. So right now we only have the trailer.
Yeah, we're specifically here to talk about the effectiveness of the trailer.
Where like when we talk about Black Christmas, you know, we know the movie going into it at this point. So it's interesting to see, you know, the effect of the trailer. That has to be just a trailer for us right now.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the Black Christmas thing.
Yeah, let's get into it.
Black Christmas, of course, a precursor to 1978 John Carpenter and Deborah Hill's Halloween. A lot of people consider 1974? 1974's Black Christmas to be basically the progenitor of the entire slasher film movement. Now, we talked about in episode 1 of Haddonfield Radio Trailer Park. Of course, there were other films that could categorically be considered slasher films that exist before Black Christmas, but Black Christmas is really where the modern slasher film begins. The archetypal slasher film begins with this.
John Carpenter brings it up all the time, from interviews all the way from the 70s till now. You know, as this was his influence for Halloween. And oh my God, I mean, you can see it when you watch the movie.
Absolutely.
You can see so many aspects of what Carpenter liked and then said, okay, I'm going to apply that to this. You know, Bob Clark was really close, you know, on this one. I think of it being probably a lot more popular. It's kind of become like a cult thing now.
I think what separates Black Christmas from Halloween that came out 4 years later is Halloween had a very iconic central villain that had an iconic look, a very distinguishable ideology, and I think that was the hook that really put Halloween over the edge, in my opinion.
And, you know... truthfully, John Carpenter is just, I think, a slightly better filmmaker.
Yeah. Well,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like Bob Clark is not a hack, but it's just, you know, Carpenter was able to take that idea, tweak it to his own, do his thing, and it's just a better approach. It's a slower approach. You also have a little more,
I think,
less going on. I mean, you know what I mean? You can focus more in the suspense and the tension. That was all done on purpose. And I think, you know, Bob Clark, especially with it being so early in the genre, there's not a lot people I don't think knew what to really expect. It's kind of nutty. It's crazy. It's in your face.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I think part of also what distinguishes Black Christmas from, let's say, like Halloween or Friday the 13th that came after it, Black Christmas has a little bit more of a campy attitude, and it has a little bit more of a cheekiness to it. And whereas the original Halloween was much more of a straightforward thriller/horror film that really went for the jugular.
Well, it's kind of like, you know, Carpenter was able to look at Black Christmas and say, okay, I like this, but I'm taking the camp out.
Yeah.
And then guys like the Friday the 13th guys or the Nightmare on Elm Street guys, they watch it and go, oh, I like that, including the camp. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, certainly the later Freddy movies were very campy.
Because although the campiness is not, it doesn't fit in the Halloween movies, it is very old school horror. You know what I mean?
Well, this movie, Black Christmas, feels very much like a 1970s horror film. I mean, even more than it being a kind of prototypical slasher film, to me, it feels so much of its era. And it's the style of the acting, the type of actors they use that are very, like, notable from major films from the 60s and 70s.
And it has what, John Saxon, is that his name?
Yeah,
the father
from Nightmare on
Elm Street, right? So I have to wonder, you know, it's you know, I kind of forgot about that. I'd seen the movie when I was young once, and it was one of those, like, I could give you the gist, and then I rewatched it after I watched the trailer. for studying this, I went, oh my God, I got to sit and rewatch the movie again.
Yeah, right.
You know, it was very effective. It worked in that way because I was like, yeah, what's going on? I got to see this. And then I was like, oh yeah, John Saxon. And I said, well, geez, I wonder if Nightmare on Elm Street, like, that was half the reason why they wanted him. Was he considered at that point?
Well, he was such
like,
a sort of a staple of a lot of genre films.
And always as the cop, right?
Right. Yeah.
But really quick, so with this, I thought it was interesting. So Bob Clark also made 1983's, I believe, A Christmas Story, which is a very popular holiday movie. I have to admit, it's literally my favorite Christmas movie of all time. So, and I watch it every Christmas when we're decorating the tree.
How interesting these two Christmas films.
That's what I'm finding. It's
so odd.
It's messing me up because what I will say is this: when I watch the trailer and then I could pick up on it immediately there, and then you get into the movie and it was there even more. There are so many similarities in the tone and the style, the filmmaking. When I watch it, the way the Christmas lights look on the house, the way things are shot, the houses and the wide shots, the same type of fakes. No, there's so many things that are so reminiscent of A Christmas Story. So I had to do a little look it up. Here's my one fun fact for this.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
So Black Christmas shared the same, obviously Bob Clark, director, same cinematographer, same editor, same guy did music. You know, so it's like, imagine those guys going into making A Christmas Story and they're like, can you believe we're making, this is our next Christmas movie after Black Christmas?
It's actually one of the strangest careers, Bob Clark.
It's so polar opposite, yet it's like around the same holiday, but it's such a totally different ideas. I thought it's so interesting because for me, I pick up on these Christmas Story nuances all over the place when I'm watching Black Christmas. But anyway.
And, you know, he also made Porky's. I had to look that up just to make sure.
Yeah. That was his other sort of big-ish movie.
And there was another horror film from 1974 that I particularly like that he made called Death Dream. If you guys have not seen that one, it's definitely, I won't go too far into it because that's not the point of this, but check that one out, Death Dream. Same year, too, he made these two films.
Yep.
Death Dream is definitely a unique, a very original, interesting, kind of deeply thematic horror film that's definitely worth checking out. But Porky's,
I know, it's crazy.
I mean, it's a classic, but what a strange career he's had, Bob Clark.
Yep.
What a strange career.
Now, it's interesting, if you look at the style, when we're about to put it in a trailer, we are going to get to it, I promise.
Yeah.
So when you watch it, I want to make a few notes that you can keep in your head. The approach here when they cut it is basically they took the beginning credit sequence of the movie, and then they just are intercutting very random but also intense scenes from the movie, and then they kind of get to giving you some smaller clips with dialogue that give you a little more of an idea of what's going on. And I found that very interesting, that the approach was to hit you in the face with blah and murder and, you know, these quick blasts, and then, I mean, give people info. He definitely seemed to want to push a button with this movie of being in people's faces in a way that a movie hadn't been.
Well, there's thematic material in this movie that is really, really touchy and provocative.
It's crazy.
And after we watch the trailer, we'll talk a little bit more about some of that stuff. But there's a lot of provocative elements to this film, especially in consideration of the time period it was released within. And the other thing is, Joe and I were going to do episode 2 of Haddonfield Radio Trailer Park and just jump right into the next Halloween film. But Joe texted me at one point saying, look, I think we should really talk about this trailer for Black Christmas. And the word he used to describe it is the perfect word to describe this trailer, and that is jarring.
Yeah,
it
exactly.
is a very jarring trailer.
Yeah.
That the nature of the trailer is effective because it makes you feel deeply unsettled.
Well, so let me tell you what's happening. I was watching an interview for that last episode we did, the Halloween 2018, and Carpenter brought up Black Christmas again. And I was like, all right, I'm stopping what I'm doing right now, and I'm just going to go watch the trailer. Just kind of wanted to refresh my memory of the movie. And I put it on, and I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. This was so intense to me.
Yeah, I felt the same way when I watched it.
That's when I texted you. I was like, well, we have to talk about this. And because then I immediately, watching the trailer made me immediately buy the movie on Amazon so I could just watch it right away. And, you know, when I texted you, I was like, we got to talk about this.
Well,
because
listen,
you can see the whole thing.
I wanted to say, when it comes to trailers, especially horror movie trailers, this is not one of the ones that immediately ever would have jumped to my mind as kind of iconic, classic horror movie trailers that I'm familiar with. But having now seen it, and I realize now, this is in my opinion, one of the best trailers ever made for a horror film. This
is what I'm getting to, as sort of a bigger point here. This trailer is from that old school thinking, where they're not trying in any way to deceive you into it looking like a movie it is not. The trailer is just as jarring as the movie. It's only giving you basically just cuts of pieces from the movie. It gives you their really uncomfortable long shots of the telephone ringing and ringing and ringing.
Right.
Right? And you got this crazy British guy doing this little voiceover, and that is probably the only piece of modern trailer making in that trailer. You have to back up. I did a little research, and now trailers started in early 1900s when movie theaters were just being built. But the first ones were made from rehearsal footage of Broadway plays, and they were shown after a movie as a way to advertise those plays. And then slowly you got to guys, as it went on in Hitchcock and Kubrick, and those guys began cutting their own their own trailers for their movies, again, kind of in the style that they're cutting their movies. And that's where you get a little bit of this Black Christmas thing. But I think it's interesting. By the time we get just a little after Black Christmas, we get to Jaws. The trailers for Jaws sort of set a model that is still being used today for trailers, with the music slow. There was a long shot, I think, in the water, right? And you have a long voiceover, and it's just giving you a taste, a tease. It's not giving you scenes and dialogue and you know, it was a different approach. It didn't have to just be, and you see just the beginnings of that in Black Christmas with that voiceover at the end.
Well, these original older trailers, especially during the 1970s, they were almost like little tone poems that gave you a sense of what kind of film you were going to be getting into. And by using pieces of footage that are dramatically cut together to kind of create a vibe. Well, Black Christmas is amazing as that. Jaws, the trailer for Jaws, if you didn't want to go see Jaws after you saw the trailer for Jaws, then you obviously just aren't a movie fan.
So one of our listeners actually wrote in after the first episode and brought up a great point too with these older trailers, is that, you know, back then, a lot of time the filmmakers only had that one chance to make that impression on you. People weren't going home on their computers and watching
no internet,
trailers.
and
who knows if that person, how many times they're going to go to a movie over that summer. It wasn't like today, you know, but and slowly that changed.
Yeah,
People started going more and more.
You weren't bombarded
by
marketing back then.
So they really had to hit you in the face with it and try and make you remember it and do something jarring. You know, so you have to kind of keep that in mind too.
So what we're going to do is we're going to watch, the first trailer we're going to do, of course, is going to be Bob Clark's 1974 Black Christmas. We're going to watch the trailer. Like Haddonfield Radio, our other series, we're not going to be talking over the trailer. It's not a commentary for the trailer. We're going to watch the trailer, and then Joe and I will come back and we'll talk a little bit about both the trailer, its effectiveness, the movie itself, some history, some fun facts, what have you, and then we'll do the next trailer after that. So why don't we just go ahead? We're going to watch right now the trailer for Bob Clark's 1974 film Black Christmas.
high school girl's been murdered. Mr. Harrison's daughter is missing. And now at the house where she lives, the other girls are getting obscene phone calls.
Yeah, what I've done is I've tapped this phone so that when it rings, it'll ring at the station house, too.
There was a little girl murdered over in the park tonight. Yes, I heard. Your phone's ringing.
Hello?
Hey, Mommy. Hey, baby. Baby, all right, Mommy.
Who's there?
I know you're there. Now, see me. You answer me, it's me. Mommy. Come here.
Where's Agnes?
You want?
Why are you doing this?
This is Graham. It's group 140, terminal 55.
Remember those idyllic scenes out of your childhood? Crisp winter nights, star bright, sleigh bells, crackling Yule logs, candlelight glistening off of shimmering Christmas trees, chestnuts roasting over open fires, carolers beneath snow-covered window ledges. Remember those. Remember them well. After Black Christmas, they'll never be the same again. Black Christmas, starring Olivia Hussey, Keir Dullea, Margot Kidder, and starring John Saxon as Lieutenant Fuller. If this movie doesn't make your skin crawl, it's on too tight.
Well, there we go.
If this movie doesn't make your skin crawl, it's on too tight.
That guy is so funny. I was just saying to him during the trailer, I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's not a British man. That I think that's someone doing an impression.
I feel like it sounds a lot like James Mason. I know it isn't, but it's somebody almost in that James Mason mold.
It's a great tagline, though. I mean, you
Yeah.
know, for an early horror movie when taglines were just, you know, becoming a thing and all that.
It's almost like more than a trailer. It's almost just like a little like evocative short film. I mean, it's way longer than what our brain, like, you're watching this with the sense of like modern trailer cutting, and it's like my brain just can't accept it as a trailer because the pacing is so unorthodox for what we're used to in a contemporary sense for trailers.
Yeah, I mean, they weren't trying to copy or keep up with, you know, what trailers are doing.
No, I mean, they were feeling out the format. They were basically creating the format.
They were just trying to advertise their movie, you know? And this was a thing. I mean, there were trailers, obviously, but it was in the early days of modern, trailer making. So, but it's awesome. When we used to talk about the early Halloween movies, I used to bring up a lot the phones. Remember always bringing up, like...
Oh, yeah, that's a big part of this
It's amazing how they use the phones so much in those early movies. Those, phones we don't have today, but those early house phones with the actual bell in them that would be ringing loudly. And so, obviously, those things used to create some tension in a house.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, that brings me to a point I had been thinking about when it comes to this movie. This movie is somewhat based on the urban legend called The Babysitter and the Man Upstairs.
Jesus.
Where the idea of you have a young virginal woman. Sometimes you could see her as a babysitter. In this case, she's a sorority girl. She's being stalked by an intruder who, unbeknownst to her, is actually inside the house.
Right.
She's receiving these obscene, profane phone calls that are tracked to be coming from inside the house. And this becomes a movie trope that you see in other films.
Up to Scream.
Yeah, right. Scream 2 has it. Very famously, the movie When a Stranger Calls, where you hear, "Have you checked the children?"
Yes.
You know, and the police call up the babysitter in that movie and say, the call is coming from inside the house.
I wonder, do you have any idea, was there anything before Black Christmas that did it? In a movie sense?
I don't think so. I think in a movie sense, in the research I did, which wasn't the deepest research, but in the research I did, I think it began here.
Yeah.
It jumped to When a Stranger Calls. The movie Urban Legend has it. Scream 2 has it. The Sarah Michelle Gellar scene in Scream 2 has it. As a matter of fact, if you think about Scream in general, Ghostface uses the phone as a way to get under the skin of his victims. His or her victims, I should say, depending on who's wearing the Ghostface mask. But the phone call element of Scream is such a big part of the genetics of that series.
Yeah.
And I think that all goes back to this film.
It's weird. Now I really want to go see how many other filmmakers use or cite this Black Christmas as an influence. I mean, it was just so on my radar as a Carpenter
strangely
Halloween
enough,
thing, but now you really think about it.
Even David Lynch, he makes this movie, one of my favorite David Lynch movies, called Lost Highway. And yet he inverts this trope, where you have the Robert Blake, the pale-faced, creepy mystery man, stalker character, who shows up. He tells the character Bill Pullman's playing, "Go ahead, call your own house. I'm there right now." And Bill Pullman creepily picks up the phone, dials his own home phone number, standing directly in front of this guy, and that guy answers the phone at his house. And it's sort of an inversion of this, and it's a very, very creepy way of doing it.
Yeah.
So the idea that stems from Black Christmas, that's basically a major part of the DNA of Black Christmas, went on to inspire all these other horror films and to become a trope that kind of moves through the horror films. But that idea, it really stems from an earlier urban legend that was told in like almost like in ghost story format. You know, about. And the interesting thing about this movie is when the screenwriter A. Roy Moore originally wrote this movie, it was called Stop Me, and it was about a babysitter who getting these obscene phone calls that turn out to be a stalker inside the house. Director Bob Clark later, you know, when he got on board the project, he revised that screenplay to make it set in a sorority house, because then he could add all these other characters in.
Well, and this also must establish that sort of trope, too, of the sorority house being
absolutely
the target of a stalker, you know?
Well, what's great about it is you when you set it in a sorority house, you have all these different archetypal character girls. You know, in this movie shows you got like this group of girls, all different types of girls. And there's also a lot of red herrings in this movie. Keir Dullea, whose acting I find just horrible in this movie.
There's two things about the actors I'll say. Margot Kidder I love her, and she's beautiful in this movie, but she is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Her over-the-top drunk acting, and it's amazing that they have a scene where she's trying to get a little kid drunk in it, which is just so weird. I thought as a filmmaker. But then, Keir Dullea from 2001.
Yep.
Here he is from going from Kubrick. A couple years later, he's doing this, which I find such an odd choice, unless he got so typecast that no one was like hiring him after 2001.
I'm not sure, but it's a very odd, and almost cringy performance.
He is in it, and he kind of sucks.
Yeah.
Or I don't know. He just can't do creepy. I don't know. He's always a creepy actor to me. Like he has a sense of that, but when he's trying to be, it felt very.
I just think he's so obviously a red herring in this movie that.
But think about it. It hadn't been done a lot in movies yet.
No. We're thinking about that from the perspective of the modern age.
We've seen it a million times at this point. These people hadn't, A
couple other quick things about this movie that's interesting.
Yeah.
A major theme in this movie, of course, is abortion.
Yeah.
Which was very, very touchy at that period.
Took me by surprise.
If you consider this movie was only released 1 year after Roe v. Wade. Mm-hmm. Only 1 year after that.
Yeah, they were not holding back.
So this is a very provocative element to place in the movie.
But, and if you think about it, it's not just in there. They're not just doing it now because they can. Within the storyline, you know, they're veiling, they're hiding the actual political issue there, because there are people telling the girl still, like, you know, don't talk about this, or, you know, she's afraid to talk about it.
Right.
The idea that the boyfriend's becoming abusive over it. It's kind of, they're trying to say, look what happens to women if they try and stand up and do this for themselves.
That's
you know what I'm saying? And it's
definitely a subtext.
It is a very, very. I was for.
Well, it's an effective thematic element for a horror film because it's unsettling.
Yeah, for a horror movie, it's odd to think that they were worrying about getting that message in there. You know? I don't know.
Another interesting thing about Black Christmas is it was actually inspired by a real series of murders committed by Canadian serial killer Wayne Bowden, who had a very creepy nickname in the press. He was called the Vampire Rapist. Which I'm not sure on YouTube if you can actually even say that word, so I'm going to spell it.
Yeah.
But that's what he was called. And those murders took place in the Westmount area of Montreal, which is where A. Roy Moore hailed from, the screenwriter of this film.
Gotcha.
So it's kind of an interesting thing. It's just the trailer alone. Let's just talk about that for a minute. This is, again, an effective trailer.
Yeah.
It makes you, like Joe had talked about a few minutes ago, when he saw this trailer, he immediately went and bought the movie. So obviously this trailer still works.
It worked for me just out of the sheer curiosity factor of what the heck is actually going on in this movie.
In that iconic image that's they end the trailer with, that's of the sorority girl in the chair in the attic with the bag over her head, the body, the lifeless body with the bag over her head, in the slow push in on the window, the wintry Christmas window, in the body in the other side of the glass. Oh my God!
It's so
what
good.
an iconic image is.
There's another scene in the movie, and you get a few shots of it in the trailer, that I feel like is so good it almost has no right being in this movie. There's when they're trying to trace the phone call. I've never seen anything like that. The inside of the telephone center, where you literally see a guy running through row after row after row of these computer or telephone equipment, you know, banks of it, trying to look for the light that's telling him where that call is coming from, and then he's finding it and he's trying to get to back to the phone to tell them. I mean, you know, it's very intense. It's shot well. I don't know. I love that scene. I thought they kind of keep going back to it because they keep trying to get the trace, so it doesn't work the first couple times. But the big last one, and the guy is running. It's so intense.
Yeah, this is a movie that much like its trailer, really does a really great job of building tension successfully.
Yeah.
And going back to like the Halloween franchise, some of the Halloween sequels we've covered on Haddonfield Radio, we've talked about the fact that some of them do have a difficult time maintaining sequences of elevated tension. And this is a movie that is just a master class, much like the first Halloween 1978, just a master class in tension building and also tension relief. And how to kind of ebb and flow suspense to make something that works over the course of, let's say, 90 minutes.
It's not as over the top as some of the 80s horror, but it does have that also comic element with the father of the girl that has the bag over her head. When he shows up looking for his daughter, and you see him in the trailer, he's the bald-headed guy with the mustache and the glasses sitting in the police office. He's sort of the comic relief in this movie. He's trying hard to go find his daughter, but he's so stodgy and stuffy that they do this whole funny thing with him. Especially being in a sorority house in the 70s, the girls all have the risque posters, and he's realizing his daughter was, you know, dating, and there's like, you know, posters of the magic mushrooms up and all this stuff, and then there's the sorority house. What do you call it? The woman in charge of the older lady who's in charge of the house.
The house den mother.
The den, whatever. The house mother.
Yeah.
And she's another over the top, funny woman character who you know, meets a horrific death. But so this movie also kind of lays the seed for that idea of the funny.
Well, I think a lot of it goes back to this kind of entrenched thematic concept in a lot of these original older horror movies about the idea of loss of innocence, the idea of the transition from the virginal youth into the more complicated adulthood, and all that stuff that you see in the Friday the 13th movies and certainly in the Halloween movies. And I think this is one of those places where it's prototypical. So I don't know. I think this is a very effective trailer.
Yeah.
This would get my ass in a seat 100%.
Yeah, I agree. This one works.
And what do you guys think? We've got the comment section right below this video. We love to hear from you guys. And do us a favor, let us know what you think of the movie Black Christmas, what you think of the trailer for Black Christmas, anything you want to add, anything you want to, any takeaways, anything we missed, anything we got wrong, please, let us know. And in saying that, just that's really something Joe and I love to see, is when you guys interact with us. We're doing this specifically to reach out to other fans. So if you're out there and you have something you want to add or you want to say, please send us a comment.
Yeah, I can see this becoming maybe a movie we actually do a full-on...
Oh, yeah.
After we're done with the Halloween movies on Haddonfield Radio, we will probably cover this at some point, since it's tied heavily to Halloween.
Really quick, before we go on to the next film, another interesting fact, and I might call this a fun fact if you don't mind.
Oh, do it.
Another interesting fun fact that I once read is that if Bob Clark had done a direct sequel to Black Christmas, believe it or not, the idea he had was to call it Halloween.
Huh.
And to set it at the
Halloween holiday. I wonder if he was just going to make his way through the holidays if they kept working like that.
It's really weird to think. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, that John Carpenter knew that at the time.
I wouldn't doubt it. I wouldn't doubt it.
Now, I'm not suggesting.
I wonder if those two ever knew each other.
That's what I'm trying to remember, because this is something I read ways back when we were doing early episodes of Haddonfield Radio.
Yeah.
If somebody out there knows the specifics of this, let us know in the comments. But I think they did know each other, and I think that piece of information was something Carpenter knew.
Right.
And so that's just one of those weird little fun facts. But anyway.
Okay, so let's move on, right? We're going to...
The next film we're doing, like we mentioned at the beginning, we're going to now be doing a modern trailer. And we're going to be doing 2023's upcoming film, The Exorcist Believer, directed by David Gordon Green. So we're going to jump right into watching the trailer to that right now. And when we come back, we'll talk all about it.
Good day. Hey, be home by dinner.
I love you. Good morning, Mr. Fielding.
Morning, Catherine.
And here are your daughters, Angela and Catherine. It's about 7 hours ago, and that's the last information we have.
Catherine!
Angela?
If you can hear this, we love you. Please come home.
Hey, you found her? What are you and Catherine doing out there in those woods?
You were just walking and walking. That's all I remember.
Angela, can you tell your dad how long you were gone?
A few hours.
Baby, you've been gone 3 days.
What'd you say?
I didn't say nothing.
Thought I heard you say something.
Hey, baby. You okay?
Wherever those girls went, they brought something back with them.
The body and the blood of Jesus Christ.
Body in the blood? Body in the blood?
Catherine.
Body in the blood. The body in the blood. The body and the blood.
Catherine.
The body and the blood. The body and the blood.
Have you ever seen anything like this?
Mommy?
No, but there are people out there who have.
You have some experience with possession.
Yes, more than I'd like.
I believe you can help get our girls back.
Exorcism is a ritual. Every culture, every religion, they all use different methods. It's going to take all of them.
Don't be scared.
We've met before.
Mother. Make it stop! It's hurting!
What did you do?
Is that Catherine's heartbeat?
They're beating in sync.
God played a trick on you.
Well,
that I'm telling you, I know a lot of I took some time and I read some of the comments beneath some of the YouTube channels that were hosting this trailer, including I forget which distribution company is putting this movie out, but wherever the original trailer is held, and it's unbelievable how much vitriol you find in these comments. A lot of people, I think there are obviously a lot of people that didn't like a lot of David Gordon Green's Halloween trilogy, okay? Now, I am a huge fan of all three of the David Gordon Green Halloween films, and I love the way David Gordon Green reorients these classic horror films.
Yeah.
And I think just in terms of this as a trailer, I think this is a very well-made, effective trailer that makes me want to go see this movie.
Yeah, I'll admit I'm a sucker for trailers. And no matter how many times I see a trailer that gets me excited, but then the movie disappoints me, it doesn't stop me from getting excited again for seeing another trailer. But it is different. Like nowadays, you know, they really can make a trailer make a movie look a lot better, or they can give you so much of the good stuff in the trailer, and then that's really it. You don't see too much more after that in the movie. So, you know, but I have to have faith based on what I've already seen of David Gordon Green.
No pun intended.
Yeah. that this movie will hold up. I mean, I've watched it a few times, the trailer, and then last night I put it on very late with headphones on, cranked, and I had to shut the trailer off halfway through.
God! Wow.
I got so
that's high praise.
I was watching it in the dark down in our dungeon down here in my basement where we record, and you know, I just set myself up to get all freaked out, and I did. And you know, I definitely that's why I guess I like the Halloween movies so much too. Is their thing is a little more suspense. I don't find myself getting so like, oh my god, I can't sit through this scene. This stuff is a little more straight up horror.
Oh yeah,
right.
Yeah.
And it I don't know. It got me freaked out.
There's a couple elements of the trailer I think really work well. The slow hinting evolution of the Tubular Bells music from the original Exorcist. That's so iconic. And it's as connected to that movie as John Williams' score is for Jaws, as John Carpenter's score is for Halloween. Those Tubular Bells is the minute you hear it, you just thinking directly of The Exorcist. And you know, here you have something where now instead of the one Reagan McNeil, the Linda Blair character from the original, now there's two little girls. One thing about the trailer that really captures my attention is I want to know what happened in the woods.
Oh, yeah.
They went walking in the woods. I'm dying to know what is the explanation.
I bet you don't know.
Oh my God.
I wonder if we're not going to know.
I hope so.
They definitely were hinting that there were like little ritualistic things hanging in the trees in the woods.
I want to know what's going on.
Almost looked Blair Witchy in a way, right?
Yeah.
The bell. Back to the bells. Same thing. Like I almost forgot how iconic the music was until the first time I watched the trailer, and then all of a sudden the first hint of those notes came on, and I was like, oh, that's right. It
just
the theme.
gets you right away.
And I'm like, oh, and I got chills right away. I also love the scene at the end of the trailer with the heartbeats.
Oh,
has got
so
me
cool, yeah.
So intrigued about what that leads to. They're obviously, you know, the two of them are doing something to get it in sync. Yeah, the idea between two of them, is it the same thing possessed in both of them? Or are we finding out that it's something else? I don't know. It's
the two big questions I think I'm also left with is, number one, I have a very strong suspicion that one way or another, probably at the end of the first movie,
Reagan.
you're going to get Linda Blair.
Yeah.
Now, I know for a fact from reading and doing some research, Linda Blair was on set through most of this film. She's listed in the credits for The Exorcist Believer as a consultant.
Sure.
Because she worked very closely with the two young actresses that play the two possessed girls.
Just the way Nick Castle was a consultant on Halloween, but he got a pretty good cameo,
I
too.
think clearly the obvious assumption is that she's going to either, my guess is she'll be at the end of this movie and then be a big part of the second film.
Exactly, yep.
The other thing that really strikes me about this trailer and leaves me with a big question mark is the movie is called The Exorcist. Who is the exorcist in this story? Max von Sydow he died in 2020.
Right.
What's his name that played Damien Karras, Father Damien Karras? I'm blanking on his name. He passed away as well.
Yeah.
So neither of those original actors from The Exorcist
Was it the
around.
mother? Are they implying that the mom has come to...
maybe.
Or are they going to bring in a bunch? Because she said we're going to need all of them for this.
Well, see, I think what these questions, though, do provide for me is this idea that what makes this an effective trailer is it's not spelling out the entire film to you.
No. And it's
leaves
clearly
you
opening up
wondering.
the world.
Yeah.
Like, we've got 2 kids possessed. It seems like we're going to take on the idea of how exorcisms work in many cultures.
Yeah.
And we're going to need to use all of that here.
I mean, the original film, what's not really in the conversation when people talk about the original film, is the original film, a lot of it was made to be an indictment of modern medicine, the failures of modern medicine. And you see a lot of the hallmarks of that in this trailer, that you have the Ann Dowd character, who is some sort of a medical professional, a doctor or nurse. I'm not sure what she's supposed to be, but she's, at one point in the trailer, you do see her wielding a crucifix.
Yeah.
So I don't know if they're sort of bringing her in to kind of fill that role of like the Max von Sydow role. But then again, this is a story that's going to be told over 3 films. So maybe these elements will come in at a later point.
Yeah.
But I will be shocked if Linda Blair as Reagan McNeil doesn't show up in this movie.
Yeah.
I'll be shocked.
It's an obviously we don't know the movie. We can't talk too much about how good it is or isn't.
That's what's great about covering a trailer that's specifically only a trailer. There's no movie to relate it to.
And you have to remember that this is probably the first. We're probably going to get more. We'll get additional scenes, and you'll get a little bits more pieces as we get closer.
It really has that Halloween 2018 feel to me, in that you can see David Gordon Green applying a lot of what he learned making his Halloween trilogy to The Exorcist, like we mentioned in our introduction to this video.
Exactly.
I mean, I went actually back last night and watched the original trailer for Halloween 2018. And it's interesting to me how similar it is to the construction of this trailer.
I think they were, probably asked to, and the intent here is to copy that, make this in that mold, and hopefully it all works again.
I think this movie is going to open very big. I think it's going to have a big opening weekend. But what's going to make it, have the potential to be a blockbuster in the horror world is whether it's going to have good word of mouth, and that's really, to me, the big elephant in the room. Is whether this movie is going to be a film that people are going to walk out of after that opening weekend saying that was an awesome movie. I want to see it again. I want to tell people to go see it. Because everyone's going to go that first weekend. The trailer will get you to go. People love this series. And they also are going primed with the notion that The Exorcist is commonly to this day referred to as the scariest film ever made.
That's pretty damn scary.
So that's a big promise to fulfill.
Oh, it is.
It's big shoes to fill.
Yeah, he has to actually scare the crap out of people in this one.
And like I said in the introduction, this is a $400 million gamble. The 3 films, $400 million investment, and really, there's 2 other films that are really hinging on this film being successful. And this film being good.
And that's a good point, because so hopefully him knowing he's making 3 films from the get-go hopefully results in a little bit stronger overall story, like between the three movies, where maybe one criticism in the Halloween trilogy was, you know, the last two were sort of tacked on to a successful movie. They didn't really have that intent.
And plus, they were working within COVID and all these other, speed bumps that were making the production of the following two movies much more difficult.
But maybe going into this one with a different approach, you know, where he's filming simultaneously some stuff. I don't know.
Right.
You know,
I mean, we're here specifically just talking about the trailer.
But yeah, it makes me want to see it.
And the trailer, to me, is effective. I don't understand the people that could watch that trailer and just say, that's a type of person, and you see it in the comments.
So
people just have a preconceived notion that it's not going to work, or they didn't like other things David Gordon Green did, and so they're just primed not to like this, and that's something that's working against this movie.
But I mean, I guess if you didn't like David Gordon Green's past stuff, then yeah, you're not going to like this probably. You know what I mean? It's just, it is what it is, right? He's a thing that he's working right now with these movies. And
I just can't
some
wait.
people are not fans. But you know
listen, the original Exorcist sequel, Exorcist II: The Heretic, while I personally really liked that movie, that John Borman movie, it certainly didn't feel like a sequel to William Friedkin's The Exorcist. It's probably one of the most famous or most infamously poorly conceived sequels maybe in history. But to see this as a direct, thematic, consequential sequel to the original film, well, I'm very excited to see where this storyline goes.
Exactly. Yeah, of course, it excites me, the idea of the starting over from the first movie.
Yeah, I love that. So yeah, I'm there. Whether it's good, whether it's not good, I'm there.
I want to know why one girl has a cross on her head, an upside down cross, the other one doesn't. Is that implying a sort of... I don't know. One's one end, one's the other end of a...
Yeah, I don't know.
Of a possession. I don't know.
I like that Chris Nelson, who designed the makeup effects for David Gordon Green's Halloween trilogy, really brilliantly designed. Him and his team returned to do the effects for this one. And I love these prosthetics that are on the two possessed girls. The way that they look so much like the original Dick Smith prosthetics from The Exorcist.
By the end, I noticed what was great. It's sort of the early progressions are sort of have a newer feel.
Yeah.
But then by the end of the trailer, where these girls are clearly really possessed, it looks so much like Reagan from the first movie. But you know, in the beginning, when the girl's coming into the church, I get more almost of a zombie feel there in terms of the girl's look.
Oh, yeah.
Which kind of makes sense on the way to a possession, like her being in this sort of...
it's the corruption
in-between state of being alive and dead.
Yeah,
you know?
It's this corruption of life and corruption of innocence, and so that makes a lot of sense.
But anyway, totally effective on my end, too. I will be there to see it. I will probably be jumping in my seat like crazy I
mean, you don't have to do much. I'm a huge, if you've listened to any episodes of this show, you know I'm a horror fan, so I'm there. But you know, I love this. I personally love these modern requels. I'm a sucker for it. I'm also a sucker if you're going to hit me in the nostalgia button. I'm a sucker for that too. I have to admit.
Big time.
So seeing Ellen Burstyn return and wanting to know, well, what's happened in these 40, 50 years with her character. You see in the trailer that she obviously wrote a book after the events of the first film.
And that nurse there, she's in Handmaid's Tale.
Yeah, Ann Dowd.
Plays like this really hard-ass woman in that, so it's interesting to see her in this more sympathetic role.
It also occurred to me that she plays a very kind of a creepy role in the movie Hereditary, where she plays a cult leader.
Oh.
Have you seen Hereditary?
I think I have.
And that's about like demonic possession in many ways as well. So using her in this kind of brings the baggage of Hereditary. And if you want to know, just really quick, my opinion, Hereditary to me is one of the 5 best horror films of the past 25 years. Hereditary, you could make the argument that it is the best horror film, I think, of the past 25 years, but I would put it in the top 5 subjectively, personally. If you really want to know my subjective choice really quick for my favorite horror film of the last 25 years, and I bring this up only because a lot of people haven't seen it, so anytime I get a chance to bring it out there, I do, is David Pryor's film from 2021, called The Empty Man. If you have not seen The Empty Man, you need to immediately after this video go and find it and watch it. If you watch the first 20 minutes of that film and you are not hooked on the rest of the film, then I don't know what kind of horror fan you are. Anyway, so anything else about this one?
Well, you know, one last thing I want to say about watching trailers in general, right, is I plead with everybody out there, whenever you watch, if you're going to give the filmmakers the couple minutes of your time, don't watch these things on your phone, in a busy bus, or you know what I mean. You lose the effect. And I think, unfortunately, the modern age with our phones is really affecting if somebody sees a movie for a glimpse of a movie for the first time, and where they are when they see it.
Which is probably most of the time now.
Right, it's not guaranteed that your trailer for your new movie, people are going to be sitting in a darkened theater and watching it before a bigger movie. It's wherever, if someone's just bored and sees a link, they're going to click it and whatever. And, I got to wonder, I was so freaked out watching the Exorcist trailer last night here on my big TV.
Yeah,
headphones.
well, to set the scene and to set the context, and we're down here in Joe's basement where we always record our episodes. Well, Joe's basement is almost like a little movie theater.
I live in a horror movie basement.
Okay,
No.
so it's like, if you were here with us, you'd see what we mean. It's like a little movie theater. And so I have to admit, the only place I've seen the Exorcist Believer trailer leading up to today, recording this episode, is on my phone. Seeing it here with the big sound and everything else, I was like, man, this trailer rips.
I won't say that I don't ever watch anything on my phone, but I try for it to get a first impression, for it to not be like someplace where I can barely hear it, or or anything like that.
But it's a very good point you bring up when it comes to trailers, because I think the vast majority of exposure to these trailers nowadays is on people's phones.
Which is probably why the style also has changed to a much flashier, quicker style.
Absolutely.
Where, maybe you don't have to rely on the dialogue that's happening so much.
Yeah,
in
100%. I totally agree with that.
But, so, I don't know. I just thought that was something interesting to consider when watching the trailers.
I think these episodes we're doing, this idea, Joe came up with this idea of doing a vintage trailer and then following it with a modern trailer. And like we said at the beginning, we are still going to be covering all the trailers from the Halloween franchise. The next episode of Haddonfield Radio Trailer Park, episode 3, we will be covering Halloween 2 and Halloween 3.
Yep.
So we're still doing that.
Yep.
But every other episode we're going to be doing this model, and I actually think this is a lot of fun.
This is great
to kind of compare and contrast the styles of a vintage trailer and a modern trailer.
Well, yeah. I mean, now if you want to just take those two trailers and put them side by side and talk about it that way, Black Christmas literally versus this in their style.
Oh wow, yeah.
I mean, you want to talk about seeing like the history of a horror trailers from literally,
or like the history of horror marketing.
Yeah. I mean, they're radically different. And it would be I'd be curious to go back to '74, pull Bob Clark aside, and show him a trailer for this movie, for The Exorcist now, and say, what do you think about this?
Yeah, this is where it's going.
This is where it blows his mind. Never mind the look of the movie and the makeup, but just like the idea of this is what they do to advertise. It would be so freaky. It'd probably be so overwhelming with how quick and flashy and everything is.
It's like so different. It's not even. It's amazing. It's the same thing.
Right.
It's so different.
Right. Well,
this was great.
Yeah.
I enjoyed looking at both of these trailers. I'm definitely going to be there opening weekend to see The Exorcist Believer. Good or bad.
Yeah, I'm sure at some point we'll mention our thoughts in general somewhere down the line.
And part of the reason we chose this, it comes out on October 13th, 2023.
Oh, of this year already. Okay, cool.
So if you're in the future and you've already seen this movie and you're listening to this that we recorded in the past, I hope that it was a good movie. I hope that we liked it. But yeah, so I don't know. But anyway, yeah, this was a lot of fun. I'm so glad that we did these two trailers. I hope you guys enjoyed watching these trailers with us.
Thanks for listening, guys.
Yeah, we're going to be back next time with episode 12 of Haddonfield Radio, where we'll be bringing you a fan commentary deep dive exploration of the history, lore, and legacy of David Gordon Green's 2021 sequel, Halloween Kills. That will be coming up next. And after that, we'll be back with another episode 3 of the Haddonfield Radio Trailer Park. So got a lot of stuff coming.
Yeah, yep.
And we really appreciate you guys. I say it every time, Joe and I both say it every time. Just want to take a moment to just thank you so very much for taking a little bit of time out of your very busy lives to watch these trailers and listen to us ramble on about them and babble on about them. We really do these shows and this channel just to reach out to other fans of these movies, so it means a lot to us.
Yeah, if you haven't already, just hit the subscribe button.
Please.
And,
if you like this content and you haven't subscribed, hit that subscribe, just so we can let you know when new episodes are going to air. This is now our second series within our channel, and I'm sure we're going to have more series as we go on. So if you want to be part of that community, please hit that subscribe button.
These episodes, the Trailer Park episodes, have their own playlist on our channel. If you don't want to have to search around through the video section, just look through the playlist, and they will all be contained right there.
Yeah, we even have the playlist for all the different 4 timelines of the Halloween films. If you like a particular timeline, or you just want to watch the Cult of Thorn trilogy for the Halloween movies, we have a playlist for that. So please, yeah, give those playlists a look. And if you have something you want to add, something we missed, something we got wrong, something we got right, that you want to add some information to, send us a comment. We love hearing from you guys. That really makes our day, good or bad, it makes our day to hear from you guys. And it's always really amazing, so much friendliness, so many knowledgeable, creative, and talented people who reach out to us. And also, we have an Instagram page if you want to check us out. It's a really fun community over there. If you go to Instagram, we are Haddonfield_radio, or just hit hashtag Haddonfield Radio and you'll find us. Anything else?
No, I'm good.
All right, well, we'll be back next time with Haddonfield Radio episode 12. Until then, I'm Christian White.
I'm Joe Francazio.
And have a very happy Halloween.